Oh, the evenings are hard. I shoved everybody into a room and they're watching Zootopia. They're not gonna, there's like 4 people in one small bedroom right now. So I'm gonna let's just do this. Okay.
Okay. Alrighty.
We're recording.
We're recording. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families Virtual Gala 2020. I'm Ernabelle DeMillo. I will be one of your MCs tonight, along with my most favorite person in the whole world. Hi, Alan.
Hi, Ernabelle. Wait, your favorite person? So is Ryan Reynolds here and I don't know that? No,
where is he? I think he's over there. I think he's hiding behind you. I'm saying, hey Ryan. Oh, but it's so good to see you, Alan.
It's so great to see you too. I know it's been a while. And we usually don't see each other that often, but we see each other in person when we see each other. So
let's pretend, right? Let's pretend that we are in person.
So yes.
We even have a script.
And we have virtual cocktails, pretend virtual cocktails.
Yes.
We're going to be drinking all night.
So congratulations to CACF. And hey, you know what? These days we're doing it virtual. So let's start this off. As we face so many transitions and questions about the future, as we see communities that are struggling in the face of the coronavirus pandemic, and as we see calls for racial justice echo, throughout the country. And that is something that I've always loved about CACF. It is an organization dedicated to the work of building, coordinating, and raising the volume of progressive APA voices in order to strengthen our communities across New York City. And you will see that tonight, right, Alan?
That is absolutely right. So thank you, Ernabelle, for being here. Thank you all for being here. And I'm thrilled to be here for CACF's Virtual Gala 2020. We really hope you enjoyed the reception just now, organized by APA Youth, who are part of CACF's ASAP, the Asian American Student Advocacy Project. You got a little taste of the powerful community that CACF is building. Our APA community has struggled in silence, and CACF demands that our voices be heard. Ernabelle, one of the reasons why I have been so excited to be a part of CACF for all of these years is exactly that, the dedication to community. CACF is the only organization that brings together youth, community organizations, and community allies to push for changes that impact millions of New Yorkers, especially those who struggle the most. This is why CACF is critical. It's the only organization of its kind doing the work to raise voices and to build an APA community so powerful that it can no longer be ignored. And please don't forget to support CACF tonight by texting CACF 2020 to 44321. Again, please text CACF 2020 to 44321. And now I'm happy to introduce Larry Lee, President of the Board of CACF.
Thanks, Alan. Hi, I'm Larry Lee, President of the Board of Directors. During this challenging time, we come together in community. We commemorate 34 years of CACF's work, 34 years of uniting and raising the volume of voices for equity for Asian Pacific Americans, especially those most marginalized. The current pandemic has had devastating impacts on Asian Pacific New York communities, families, and individuals. Yet, the APA's struggling voices remain largely unheard. At CACF, we amplify APA voices calling for change, a change from the status quo. And we all have an opportunity to support CACF's work to build an APA community that is too powerful to ignore. Please support CACF tonight. Text CACF 2020 to 44-321. Thank you.
Larry, thank you so much for your dedication to CACF throughout the years. So tonight is an opportunity to come together and reflect on the voices of our community that speak the truth about those of us who are struggling. CACF began 34 years ago with a charge to understand and amplify critical community voices for change. And the organization continues to build upon this legacy with CACF's current co-executive directors, Vanessa Leong and Anita Gundana.
Thanks, Ernaville. And I'm so excited to welcome all of you new friends and old joining our virtual community tonight. I'm Vanessa Leong, co-executive director of CACF.
And I'm Anita Gundana, co-executive director of CACF. Thank you all for supporting CACF both tonight and throughout the years.
You know, I don't need to remind you all, but we are living in really challenging times. The COVID-19 pandemic has revealed the cracks in our system. We've seen how this pandemic has had its worst impact on those in our city who are already marginalized, who are already struggling, many in silence. And for the APA community, those struggling are rendered invisible by the model minority myth. Why is it that those struggling within our community always tend to shoulder the most, yet fare the worst? Over 22% of us are struggling with poverty. Almost half of us are not English proficient, and many of us are undocumented or dreamers and have little to no access to public benefits.
And no one should have to suffer in silence, especially when they're struggling to survive. We as a community cannot turn our backs on people who, despite doing all they can, can't overcome the many barriers and challenges that get compounded. Every day, CACF member organizations are helping to alleviate those burdens brought about by poverty, by language barriers, and by the sheer complexity of navigating systems to get the supports that are available. And these community organizations also have to fill the gaps when the government systems fail to support those most in need.
You know, and as our ASAPers reminded us earlier, we can do so much more when we do things together, as a community, as a collective. Together, we must transform our communities to be more equitable and compassionate. And we must transform our systems and the policies that guide them to center humanity.
We have an obligation to do what is right and necessary for the people most impacted. We must focus on solutions that will lift those of us who are marginalized and discriminated against. These solutions require collective work, raising our voice and building our power towards larger and systemic changes, changes that can impact the lives of thousands, and changes that are necessary in order to address how we support all of those who struggle the most. If there's one thing we've learned during this pandemic, it's the fact that protecting and lifting those of us who are struggling the most, in fact, lifts us all.
And the time is now. Our political climate requires us as an APA community to act together, to speak up and raise our voices. Our country is in transition and we are working hard towards a brighter future. And in order to achieve that, APA voices must be part of the decisions being made that will affect all of us. Our stories need to be told. We must all speak up for those who struggle within our communities and hold the government accountable to their own promises to meet the needs of those most marginalized.
As you'll hear, CACF continues to lead as we raise the volume with those who are making decisions that impact all of our lives. And when the changes we need may take a long time, as they often do, we pull together and take action with our coalition. Please consider supporting us tonight as you hear about the work that we do and the work that must continue. Text CACF 2020 to 44321. Every dollar counts towards making sure that our stories are heard and that our community is strengthened. Thank you.
CACF is committed to the long-term system changes we need to create a more equitable society. but they have also responded quickly and adapted to be able to meet the immediate needs of those struggling, especially during this time of COVID-19. Upon hearing the concerns facing our community from their member organizations, CACF responded.
Good evening. My name is Eun-Kyung Kim, and I am the Executive Director of the YWCA of Queens. Located in Queens, we are an influential nonprofit that meets the needs of low-income individuals and immigrants in one of the most diverse cities in the world. As a member organization of the CACF, YWCA of Queens has been grateful to have access to these funds for our clients. This much needed support has been life-saving, especially for our immigrant families. I am going to share a testimonial provided by one of our clients who was a recipient of CACF's Crisis Fund. My family and I came from Peru last year with the hope of having a better life. With no family or friends in New York, we didn't know where or to whom to turn to for help. Luckily, we were recommended to the shelter where we are now currently staying. For the last year, my wife and I have been working hard to save up so that we can move to our own apartment. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic came and my wife and I had to stop working. All our hard work and savings had to be spent on very much needed expenses. Thankfully, the YWCA of Queens reached out to us and informed us about CACF's Crisis Relief Fund. Thank you for everything you sent us for our food, transportation, clothing, supplements for my tweens, and for covering the medical tests that our children desperately needed. Because of all the help we received, we have been able to save up for an apartment. Thank you for the huge heart and great support. Your support is significant, especially for those of us who are fighting every day in this beautiful country to make things work.
Hello, I'm John Park, Executive Director of the Minkwon Center for Community Action. Minkwon has a long and close history with CACF, and we continue to support the work on education equity, language access, healthcare enrollment, and of course, data disaggregation. This past year, it's been our privilege to join CACF in expanding healthcare enrollment for Asian American New Yorkers, a program that continues to have growing importance even while the Affordable Care Act continues to be attacked. Immigrants have also been under assault, especially undocumented immigrants who are cruelly excluded from the federal pandemic relief. Immigration-related filing fees have sharply increased, including DACA renewal fees, which essentially doubled this past year. And CACF has been working with the Minkwon on this issue as well. Their APA Crisis Fund helped cover DACA filing fees for those where the cost is a barrier. And Asian Americans have the highest poverty rate in the city, yet it takes an incredible effort to even make incremental progress to get more resources for our communities.
My name is Priya Sibal, and I'm the Economic Empowerment Program Advocate at Sakhi for South Asian Women. We're an organization that supports survivors of intimate partner and gender-based violence. CACF's Crisis Fund has been able to provide a lifeline to our clients who had nowhere to turn for cash assistance. We really value CACF's advocacy for our communities, as well as their ability to see and support the immediate needs of our families, especially as we face the COVID-19 pandemic that has disproportionately impacted those who are already marginalized.
এই প্যান্ডামিকে মা মেয়ের দুজনের জব ছিল না, এই কারণে আমার প্রেশারটা ডায়াবেটিক অনেক হাই ছিল। সাকি অর্গানাইজেশনের প্রিয়া আমাকে এই স্ট্রেস থেকে রিলিফ করে। শি ইজ সাচ এ নাইস পারসন। দুবার 1200 টাকা দিয়ে আমার মেইনটেনেন্সের পেমেন্ট করে, তাছাড়া 200, 300, 400, 500 টাকা দিয়ে আমার অনেক প্রবলেম সলভ করে। সাকির মাধ্যমে CACF থেকে আমাকে গিফট কার্ড দেয়। সাকি আমাকে এভরি উইকে ফুড বাস্কেট দেয়। আজকে সাকির জন্য আমরা ভালো ফুড খেতে পেরেছি ঘর থেকে না বের হয়ে ঘরে বসে খাওয়া পাওয়া ইটস এ মিরাকল আল্লাহ আপনাদেরকে
Between April and August 2020, CACF distributed over $100,000 in crisis relief funds to immigrant New Yorkers.
Center for the Integration of New Americans, CMP, Council of People's Organizations, Grand Street Settlement, India Home, Immigrant Social Services, Inc., Japanese American Social Services, Inc., Mekong NYC, Mingkwan Center for Community Action, NYU Center for the Study of Asian American Health, CACF for South Asian Women, South Asian Council for Social Services, Women for Afghan Women, YWCA of Queens.
Hello, I'm Andrea Wu, Director of Operations at CACF, and I've overseen CACF's Crisis Fund. I know that these stories of families who are struggling are just a few of many echoed throughout the APA community across the city. CACF saw the critical need to support our community and rapidly mobilized the Crisis Fund to fill these unmet needs. But this is only a drop in the bucket, as there's only so much that small cash infusions can achieve. It's been frustrating hearing about the many ways that our city is failing our families. Families who are struggling to maintain housing, health insurance, and jobs. While we see the limited impact of the Crisis Fund, it reaffirms the important work CACF does in bringing together the many voices to find solutions to improve policies that can support thousands, even millions of New Yorkers in need.
22% of APAs in New York City live in poverty. APAs have the highest rate of linguistic isolation of any group in New York City at 42%. 78% of APAs in New York City are foreign-born or immigrants.
CACF believes in building a community of voices. We know it is not going to be just one person or another that is going to make the large changes that we need. It is all of us, together, united to raise the volume and strengthen the APA community.
And CACF needs your help. Help CACF continue their vital work to build a community too powerful to ignore. Text CACF 2020 to 44321. Again, that's CACF 2020 to 44321, and be sure to invite your friends to join in the giving.
We heard about how CACF was able to quickly adapt to address the needs exacerbated by the crisis. CACF did it with emergency funds to families in need, but also stepped in when language barriers prevented many in our community to get vital health information about the coronavirus. But we all know the long-term work is also important. How CACF works with community groups across New York City to hold our governments accountable to create better systems that address the needs of our community.
So throughout the pandemic, CACF has continued our work to unite across our diverse communities. There is power in numbers, and we intend to build a community too powerful to ignore. We strengthen our communities by making sure our voices are heard, and we hold the government accountable to their own promises to meet the needs of those most marginalized. And that continues to be CACF's main goal.
The COVID-19 pandemic highlights so many of the issues that CACF has been raising for years, including the sheer lack of data and knowledge on our community's struggles to access appropriate healthcare, and the lack of language accessible services and accurate information that would help keep our families safe. In fact, studies show that neighborhoods in New York City with high Asian American populations are actually accessing COVID testing less. And that in fact, Asian Americans, the death rate among Asian Americans from COVID are higher than the average death rate across the country.
And CACF is listening. We're hearing this from our member organizations who have a pulse on the APA communities across New York City. And you will hear from our member organizations as they share about the need for in-language services, the importance of working together to address our needs, and the power of working across communities of color and building solidarity.
Adhikar means rights. We are the only women-led worker and community center who serve and organize the Nepali-speaking communities. Our community member says Adhikar is the home away from home. As a health navigator, I see every day that my community members are facing language barrier and issues. One challenge is that I have seen during this pandemic. I received unknown missed call several times during my off day. I called back and found out that he is our community member who has mental health issues. He hasn't slept for 4 or 5 days due to anxiety and told me that he had prior when he was in Nepal. Due to the lockdown, he was all alone in the room and it came back. He said he needed immediate help. Because of a language barrier, he wasn't able to call or connect the doctor. This was the biggest challenge for me during the pandemic, but I wanted to help him. I managed to connect with the doctor. Finally, he received care and he was so grateful to us. He still calls me sometime and keep up updated on how he's doing. He's just one story, but this is something I have seen countless times. I'm very grateful and thankful to CACF, who provides funding for the Health Navigator program in Adhikar.
My name is Zara Ali, and I represent the Arab American Family Support Center, a nonprofit, non-sectarian organization established in 1994 to provide culturally and linguistically competent, trauma-informed social services to immigrants and refugees across New York City. As part of our work, we often see our community struggle because they don't have access to language-appropriate materials discussing critical information. And now, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we see a lack of in-language information on testing and contact tracing. This has led to increasing rumors and misinformation running rampant throughout our communities. Many in our community fear accessing healthcare, even getting tested for COVID-19. CACF continues to push the city to provide us with in-language and culturally competent COVID-19 educational materials, but in this case, the city hasn't moved fast enough. So CACF is bringing together multiple immigrant community-serving organizations, including the Arab American Family Support Center, to develop in-language educational materials about testing, tracing, and taking care, which are available in multiple languages. AAFSC works with CACF to help ensure that our voices are heard and that all children and families in New York City can access the appropriate health care that they need.
My name is Chaya Chaum. I am the Executive Director of Mekong NYC. We organize and work with the Southeast Asian community across New York City. We're based in the Bronx and a longtime member of CACF. CACF have always been the progressive voice for the Asian Pacific American community, driving forward a vision of equity that can lift us all. And as part of that, I believe in how CACF build allies, not only just within the APA community, but across other communities of color as we amplify together the voices of those who are struggling. And there are many, many ways that communities of color have supported each other in the past, and we know will continue to do so in the future and right now. And CACF, one of the role is to build solidarity as we tackle larger problems that all of us face together as a community. And these problems run deep in systems that have failed to help us stay safe and to heal. And so this summer, with the help of CACF leadership, we came together as a Person of Color Health Justice Campaign, or the POC Health Justice, to demand community-led healthcare solutions because we were all suffering. Our community have lost so much. The pandemic has shed light on many of our shared challenges, including a lack of language access and understanding of our community's health need. And we also demanded community leadership because we know how we best heal, and our voices must be part of the response to this pandemic. And Mekong is a proud member of CACF-led campaigns for many, many years and many, many other campaigns. And so together we believe that we will make a difference in creating a healthcare system grounded in dignity and respect that works for and by the people.
When people ask me what the main barriers or challenges for our community or in helping our community, one of my go-to answers is we simply don't have very many tools. We have so little data in our community on issues like mental health, domestic violence, bullying in schools, poverty, language access, food insecurity, elder abuse, the list goes on. And undocumented immigrants and households in particular have been under attack. We lack nuanced or layered data on APAs, including disaggregated data, so that we can better serve our communities. One of the reasons why CACF is so respected by community members, nonprofit leaders, government agencies is because they do it right. They dig down to the root levels to figure out how to maximize our collective impact, and they do it the right way as a leadership organization that maintains the highest levels of integrity and courage in their coalition and advocacy work. Their aim was never competing to protect a piece of the pie. It was always about increasing the pie so that it works for everyone. And it's for these and many other reasons why the Minkwon Center recognized CACF this year for our Standing Up for Justice Award, and also why we look forward to continuing our work together with CACF in the future.
Every day, CACF is uniting across our diverse APA community. There's power in numbers.
We are collectively advocating for a better COVID-19 response from New York City, one that reaches APA communities.
We are learning through community study about the real challenges we face, both through the pandemic and as our city and neighborhoods begin our recovery.
And we are standing strong together to ask for a fair share of resources to meet the critical needs within our community.
And we are equipping leaders across our community, especially youth, to amplify our voice and push for change that we want to see in our community.
I grew up with confused ideas and feelings regarding race. For example, I believed that there were only smart Asians, East Asians, and Asians, but not Asian Americans.
To this day, I still regret how I remained still and submissive in the face of discrimination, to the point where degrading myself was the only option I saw.
Throughout middle school, I was basically viewed as someone who was dumb because I didn't speak English.
I still remember on the first day of school receiving a cold stare from my principal, making me realize how unwelcoming New York City schools can be to children of color, despite the city being labeled as a melting pot.
I eventually found people who looked like me, and by extension who thought like me, and unfortunately who suffered like me. But it was these people that taught me that it was okay not to fit people's preconceived notions of how I should think or what I should do or who I should be.
And though I felt that I had escaped the prison that was a language barrier, I still felt barred from society. I still felt foreign.
If I could be in an environment where I won't be judged for who I am, I will never be afraid to express my identity again. And in ASAP, I was not afraid to tell others that I was an immigrant.
And when I joined ASAP, I did not know who I was, but when I continuously learned more about racial literacy, gained the ability to challenge these stereotypes, advocated for equitable change on a community-based level, and defined myself as a person, not just as a white male, but as my mother suggested, but as a member of this beautiful Asian community.
In a time of uncertainty, all we can do is hope and stick with one another, and especially advocate for solidarity.
We are so grateful that CACF is here for our community and continues to fight for our community.
That's right, and that's why we continue to support CACF. And now let's turn this over to CACF board member, Gala chair, and my friend, Alex Trey.
Thanks, Alan. Actually, Alan, for those who don't know, Alan placed Alan on Sesame Street as the owner of Hooper's store for over 20 years. So Alan, whatever you're taking, I want some because you look amazing. But he can't tell me what he's taking because unlike Alan, I am live. So this is coming to you live from my living room right here in New York. So please bear with me because I don't get any retake, I don't get any reshoots, and if I screw up. So with that said, I do have a script here given to me so I don't go off the rails, but you know, anytime I find that when people read off a script, you kind of lose the audience, right? So I thought I'd really try this, you know, from the heart. So bear with me, okay? So take the script away, and it's been touched upon before. First of all, that's an amazing video. What's happened this year? This year has been a year unlike any other I've ever seen or ever could have imagined. Walking home from work today, I work in Midtown, I live in the Upper West Side, walking through Broadway, just, you know, this time of year, the streets should be full of tourists and locals, you know, Broadway shows, Rockefeller Center. It's scary, it's scary empty. The pandemic, COVID, has affected everybody and everything throughout the world, myself included. During the day, I am everyone's highlight of the day because I am a dentist. And people, you know, love coming to see a dentist. So it's affected me in the sense that the beginning of March to mid-March to May, I was shut down along with, you know, other things. I've had patients I've known a long time pass away from COVID. And all this happened against a very volatile backdrop of a charged political environment, a divided country, and also on a personal front, a very tragic accident in my family. But they say, like, no matter how dark the night, you can always find some light. And the light is, in this case, that I have a voice. You know, because I have a voice, I was able to access the PPP loan to help my practice stay afloat during that time. Because I have a voice, I was able to vote in elections to make my voice heard. Because I have a voice, I have health insurance. I'm able to get COVID testing and address other things that's necessary. And some people might sit there and think, oh yeah, you have a voice, you kind of look like the model minority, right? I think as you've seen before, it's no such thing. In New York City, Asian Americans have the highest rate of poverty. About 22% live in poverty in New York. 1 of 2 people are born into it. We are not a model minority. And just think what would happen if you didn't have a voice? I mean, one interesting statistic that came out during this time was, for fun, the divorce rate was up during the pandemic. But there's a darker side to that. Hospitalizations are up, sickness was up, domestic violence was up. Just think what would happen for people who don't have a voice. How can they access the system for help or for support? At the core of what CACF does is advocacy. Advocacy for Asian children and families. But what does advocacy mean? Advocacy, every day there's advocacy in my household because my 12-year-old daughter advocates for us to give her Instagram. For those of you who don't do that, don't ever let your kids start with social media because you cannot put that genie back in the bottle. But what advocacy really is, and what we're talking about tonight, is system-wide change on a broad level. System-wide change in government, policies, laws that affect thousands and thousands of people. The policies of a government really reflects the priorities of a government. And a government should work for everyone, not just a few. In this government right now, in this day and age, is broken. It doesn't work for everyone. Imagine in a situation that you can't access the system. What would you do? CACF advocacy gives people without a voice a seat at the table. People, they work with elected and unelected officials, lawmakers, lobbyists people in Albany, people at the city council, people to make a difference. This kind of change is real change that affects thousands and thousands of people. This is why it's so important, because if no one else makes this effort to make a change for the marginalized population, who will? So this is why I believe CACF is really very, very unique organization. On one hand, its core competency is advocacy. It's also training, as you saw, the next generation of leaders, invested heavily in social justice, the ASAP youth. And also at the capacity building of its over 40 member organizations to do more. And this is really at the heart of what we do. Nothing great is achieved without passion. And one thing I love about this organization is the passion they have. I want to again give kudos to our fantastic EDs, Anita and Vanessa, the staff of CACF, the volunteers, the board members, everyone associated with it. This is a group that during the pandemic raised $100,000 on a micro level to give out to people in need. That's amazing that that stuff happens. But it's really the macro work that is so critical and so needed today that I support it. So I ask you all to please join me in supporting this organization in this critical work. I thank those who've already donated. You can do it again. And those who have not, please consider a donation. But it's important that whether you donate to CACF or something else, I think at this time in society and place, please get involved in something. It just makes a huge difference for where we are and where we should go. So although I sit before you as one person, I'm really here representing a lot of people, the board, staff, ASAPers, and this and that. So I want to take this chance right now to bring them online. So with that said, let's show us the magic. Was that the cue? So what is supposed to happen right now is that everyone is supposed to come on.
We're here, Alex. We're here with you, Alex. You can see us. That was great, though. It was really Alex.
Well, then okay.
Kevin's here. Hi. Thank you, everybody. I just want to thank everybody who attended tonight, and of course, our amazing staff, Anita, Vanessa, Andrea, everybody else who's done such great work, our beautiful hosts tonight, Alan, Ernabel, and all of our panelists, and the ASAPers for your great work. Thank you. And all my board members too. You guys are incredible.
Yes, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining
Thank you
us.
for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for donating. We appreciate it.
Yes. I appreciate
Thanks,
all
everyone.
long-term CACF supporters and former staff. Thank you. I think that's a wrap.
All done?
Great success, guys.
welcome.